What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where we are training up warriors, not weaklings. Warriors for truth. And today is Tuesday, September 25th, in the year of our Lord 2025. This is a show where Christian men, where people of all stripes can come to get equipped to stand firm, speak truth, and fight back against a culture that is trying to steal your faith, your family, and your freedom. And if there was ever any doubt that the battle we're in is spiritual, there should be no doubt anymore. And that fight, that spiritual fight, never takes a day off. So we are done pulling punches. The gloves are off, and it's go time. It's go time. So be sure to follow us on all the socials at Mission Ready Men on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to our Rumble and YouTube channels. And if you want to boldly proclaim that you're in this fight, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all of the great designs that we have over there. All right, y'all, business is done. Let's get after it. I want to talk about the shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas the other day. 29-year-old Joshua John opened fire on U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Field Office. He killed one detainee and critically injured two others. And then he took the coward's way out and took his own life. And the state officials, ICE officials, they are saying that this was targeted violence, which, based on what we now know, that's obvious. That's completely obvious. And while details are still coming out, and of course the investigation is just in its infancy, some things are perfectly clear. On September 24th at approximately 6:40 in the morning, Dallas PD, they got calls for shots fired at the ICE facility in Dallas. And John, the shooter, obviously had planned this out. He was positioned across the street in a sniper's position, and he opened fire on the facility's Sally Port, where they were transporting detainees, or they were transferring detainees. He was found dead by responding officers on that rooftop by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Took the coward's way out. Now, what we do know, there were 3 detainees shot. 1 was killed at the scene. Another 1 or 2 were transported to a nearby hospital in critical condition. And there have been conflicting reports. Some say that one of the other 2 victims died in the hospital. Others say he's still in critical condition. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to. I've seen conflicting reports before I even went live today, so I'm not sure which one is the truth at this point. No ICE agents or law enforcement were injured. That is a good thing. Not that the detainees who were injured is a good thing. None of this should have happened, obviously. But we do know that one of the wounded was a Mexican national from the Mexican consulate, confirmed that. DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin said that he was just firing indiscriminately in the direction of the building. And I saw people on social media talking about how it had to be a right winger because he killed the detainees. That is so clearly not the case. He had no idea what he was shooting at. And I said in response to that, we don't know. At that point, we didn't know anything about his motives. We didn't know his ideology. We didn't know anything. And I just said, maybe just calm down, wait for some details. We don't know anything about him. We don't know what his skill level with a rifle was. We don't know anything. And we still only know very little. But we have gotten some details. As I said, we know his name. The weapon was described as a bolt action rifle, similar to the one that was used to murder Charlie Kirk. And they recovered ammunition at the scene near his body. And well, you know what? Let's just take a look at what was released by Director Patel, because that is telling. And these people, they just, I don't know. They just actively refuse to hear anything other than the truth. And if it's not the truth, then they're just gonna run with it. So let's see let's take a look at Kash Patel's picture here, and then you tell me. This is a picture of the ammunition, and it's kind of hard to see in this screen, but on this round right here, it says anti-ice. So not only did he use what we now believe is a similar rifle to what was used to kill Charlie Kirk, but now we have messages on the rounds. It's staring us right in the face. It is staring us right in the face, yet they refuse to see it. They absolutely refuse to see it. So we still don't know we don't know much beyond that at this point. But we do have, I mean, aside from the obvious message on the rounds that he was using, and we don't know if there are any other messages on any of the spent casings. We haven't been given that information yet. We do know that he is a hardcore leftist, and we know this because his mother is a hardcore leftist. And how do we know this? Well, here's a story from the Daily Mail. Mother of Dallas ICE shooter Joshua John is a hardline liberal who raged against gun rights. The mother of the sniper who killed, well, this says 2 immigrants were killed. That may or may not be true. I'm not sure. She was a supporter of anti-gun laws who targeted members of the GOP over mass shootings. After the tragic mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas in 2022, she posted a lengthy rant to Facebook challenging Senators Cruz and Cornyn, as well as Governor Abbott, for their support of gun rights. And there are other stories in here. If you look at her social media profile, you can see she is as big a lefty as you can possibly get. So based on that, and based on the message he put on one of the rounds that has been recovered, he was obviously a lefty too. But they couldn't wait to try and paint this person as a Republican Trump supporter, and that narrative fell apart instantly. But of course, you'll have leftists online saying the exact opposite. But there you go. The investigation, though, is ongoing. We will find out more, hopefully. There have been some investigations where that just vanished into the ether. I don't think that's going to happen here. But we will keep an eye on it and let you know as things develop. But it was a tragedy. I'm thankful that no law enforcement was injured. I kind of wish that he hadn't taken his own life so that he could face the justice that he deserves. And he's going to get it. He's obviously going to get it anyway, but we're not going to witness it, unfortunately. But like I said, we'll keep an eye on it and go from there. I want to talk about President Trump's UN address. you got to love this guy, because he just does not care. He is going to tell you exactly what he thinks, and you can like it or not. It is of little importance to him, and I think that is outstanding. He walked into the UN, the cathedral of globalism, where all of these globalists go, and instead of kissing the ring, he took a flamethrower to the place. It was amazing. I watched the whole thing, and he had some fantastic moments. He didn't treat the UN like a sacred cow. He treated it like what it is, an overpriced globalist enclave that has a superiority complex. And he just couldn't care less. He let them know exactly what he was thinking. He told them that they were supposed to be about peace and cooperation, not bankrolling vanity projects and invasions. And well, let's take a look at one of those clips where he talked about what the purpose of the UN is. And this was glorious. This was absolutely glorious.
Had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. Thank you. I think I should just do it the other way. It's easier.
That clip goes on where he talks about the UN. And he just, I mean, he talked about China. I don't have a clip of that, but he talked about China, and the China delegation was there. I mean, he just let him have it. He absolutely let him have it. He went scorched earth. And as I said, it was glorious to see. The United States is the UN's biggest benefactor. Without the United States, the UN would not exist. It would not exist. He pointed out at a later point that the UN bankrolls mass migration, and they just had to sit there and take it. And I have that one too, and I want to. Oh man, he just couldn't care less. Could not care less. Let's take a look at this one.
The UN not solving the problems it should too often. It's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped.
He just does not care. And I completely missed a bunch of chats, and I will catch up, I promise. Thank you, BZ, for being here. Always appreciate it. But yeah, he is he is what the UN needs to hear. They need to hear this. They're not going to do anything about it. Obviously, they're going to wait another 4 years or 8 years or even 12 years if we can keep J.D. Vance in there for 2 terms. They'll wait until they can figure out how to get another leftist in there, and keep doing what they do. This next clip was absolutely amazing. And it's a short one. It's a short one, but it it gets right to the point.
To end it now. Let's see, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did. They repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Excuse me. That was amazing. Your countries are going to hell. He's not wrong. And I don't think he meant in the spiritual sense. Obviously, I think he meant just in the physical sense that they are turning into crap holes. And you know what he said about certain other countries. That's what he means. And again, he's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong. Yes, BZ, that's exactly what he meant. Oh boy. So, of course, the left, the American Pravda, could not wait to take him down. The Guardian, left-wing propaganda rag, called it embarrassing. What they really mean, he didn't genuflect to the globalist Davos agenda. France 24 didn't even know that was a thing, said it was deranged. And that's just because he said mean things about immigration. And of course, the American Pravda in this country said that Trump lost it because, well, because he was speaking. They have absolutely nothing good to say about anything he says. If he's speaking, they are going to say he's lost it, he's deranged with this, that, whatever. Who cares? Who cares? The question is, and should be for all of us, are we going to continue to fund this ridiculousness? We should stop funding the UN, kick them out of that facility, and use it for housing and training of veterans. That there are a number of things we could use that facility for, instead of funding a group of people that want to kill us. The United Nations can't stand us. They're using us. They are absolutely using us. And there are any number of countries that should be hosting them, not us. Absolutely not us. We need to pull the plug on this farce. Speaking of a farce, Google and YouTube finally admitted that they acted under pressure of the United States government to censor conservatives. Finally. And we all knew this. We knew this even before the Twitter files came out. We knew that that's what they were doing. We knew the government was censoring people when it came to COVID. We knew it was censoring people, conservatives, when it came to the election integrity. We knew this. And then Matt Taibbi and another journalist, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, came out with the Twitter files confirming what we already knew. And now Google and YouTube are finally admitting that the Biden administration pressured them to remove content. This wasn't private companies exercising their right to enforce their own rules. This was the government twisting their arms to silence political opposition. That's all they were doing. And they went along with it. And don't believe for a second that they felt any kind of pressure. They loved doing it. They didn't have to ask twice. Come on. They absolutely loved the idea of censoring conservatives, deplatforming conservatives. This 28-page letter is not any act of contrition whatsoever, not even a little bit. The Supreme Court has said in repeated rulings that state coercion is government censorship. Several times, I've cited some of these cases before in other First Amendment issues that we've talked about over the years. and we'll get to that in a second. But the White House and associated executive agencies demanded that YouTube and other social platforms take down content that went against the narrative that they were trying to push, specifically when it came to COVID and the China virus and election integrity issues. Google says that some of them were made under pressure, but even if the content didn't break their rules. But again, I don't buy that for a second. I don't buy that for a second. They are in lockstep with the government, and all the government had to do was suggest that some of that content be removed, because they didn't want to take the chance that the American people might actually do some of their own research and find out that what they were saying was complete and utter nonsense. So they labeled it as disinformation. And don't forget, they actually had a disinformation agency that they created, a ministry of truth, if you will. It got shut down under public scrutiny, thankfully. But that's their tendency. That's the way they lean. That's their go-to. They claim to be admitting that what they did was unacceptable and wrong. Okay, whatever. I'm not buying it. This is First Amendment 101. And we have another First Amendment thing that we're going to get to later as it relates to Jimmy Kimmel. But right now I want to focus on this because, and it ties in, but free speech applies only to government restrictions, not private companies. You have every right to go into your place of business, your work, and say that the CEO is a D-bag. You can go in there and start calling people names. You can go in there and say whatever you want. But those people who run that company have every right to say that violates our code of conduct and you're gone. Period. End of story. And you can continue to say whatever you want to say. You just can't say it here. The government can't come in and say, you must fire this person, despite what they say happened with Jimmy Kimmel. And again, like I said, we'll get to that later on. If the government coerces a private citizen, courts have repeatedly said that that is a violation of the Constitution. And some of the cases that I've cited before, Bantam Books versus Sullivan in 1963, a state commission advised book distributors not to carry objectionable material, and SCOTUS said that was unconstitutional. Government pressure is censorship. And in the case that I most often cite, Norwood v. Harrison, one of the justices, and I can't remember which one actually said this, but the government may not induce, encourage, or promote private persons to accomplish what it constitutionally is forbidden to accomplish. It doesn't get any more clear than that. That is unambiguous language. And I'm pretty sure I've cited that case multiple times. And just in 2024 in Murphy v. Missouri, which the Supreme Court actually didn't rule in this case. They sidestepped it on the grounds of standing. But the issue was this question. The issue was whether or not the Biden administration coerced social media platforms into censorship. And now with Google's admission, we have the answer. We have the answer. And we've always had the answer. We've always known this, but now they're actually just acknowledging the truth that we've always known. And Google is going to move to, they're going to institute a pilot program to reinstate channels that they kicked off. Lawsuits are incoming. Lawsuits are incoming. There are creators who lost their livelihoods. There are creators who lost everything when they got deplatformed. And they are going to sue for damages with this admission. I'm not sure what the outcome of that will be, because I of course, Google's lawyers, Alphabet's lawyers know this. And I have a hard time believing that they would make such an admission. Maybe they're prepared to pay the damages that they're gonna have to pay, maybe. But I think just as likely, perhaps more likely, is that they have some contingency in place that is going to either prevent them from having to pay out damages, or is going to limit it somehow so that they don't have to pay what they should. Especially when you have creators, channels like The Federalist that lost millions. Dan Bongino lost millions. Other creators lost millions. And The Federalist has already indicated they're going to sue. Dan Bongino, he said at the time he couldn't care less about the money from YouTube. So we'll see. He's not running the show now, so maybe his wife or whoever is running the show will say, well, I do care, and we're going to go after it. We'll see. But the fact remains, they are on the hook for some money, and whether or not they have contingencies in place to mitigate that is, we'll see. We shall see. Congress, and I have no illusions that this is actually going to happen, Congress needs to enact some legislation that forces transparency in government communications. They need to get rid of Section 230, which is the rule that excuse me, which is the rule that labels these social media entities as platforms rather than publishers. We'll see where that goes. With this Congress, even when Republicans are in firm control, I have my doubts as to whether or not they can actually accomplish what really needs to be accomplished. But the bottom line is, if the state can deputize these tech companies, and that's not going to happen, I don't believe, in this administration, but we know that the left loves to do this kind of thing. If they can deputize these tech companies, then there is no such thing as free speech. There is no such thing as free speech. This was not content moderation at all. This was the government outsourcing censorship. This was the government coercing companies to do what they are constitutionally forbidden to do. And they got caught. They got caught. They got caught when it happened. We knew what was going on. They got caught then, but now we have the people who they did coerce finally admitting it. The First Amendment means that you cannot be silenced because government bureaucrats don't like your political views, don't like what you have to say. So if they can lean on the tech bros in Silicon Valley to muzzle you, that's state-sponsored censorship. There's no other way to slice it. No other way to slice it. And so we'll see what happens. The founders would call that tyranny. The founders would absolutely call that tyranny. So we'll see where this goes. I'm not overly confident that any of this is going to. I'm not confident that it's going to play out the way it should. I'll just put it that way. All right, let's get a word in from our sponsor for today's episode. And our sponsor for today's episode is Patriot Mobile. Now more than ever, your vote just is not enough. And we go over why that's true every single time we do a show. You need to make sure that your resources, your money goes to companies that fight for what you believe in. And that's why we switched. We switched to Patriot Mobile because it is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They don't just talk the talk about values, they walk the walk. A portion of every dollar that you spend with them goes to pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom organizations. So right now you can get a free month of service when you go to patriotmobile.com and use promo code Jackson, or call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code Jackson. Defend freedom with every call, every text, every month. Switch to patriotmobile.com today. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch all of the great shows that we have here. The Sackhead Sean with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reverb Common Sense with Jersey Joe, who's been on a bit of a hiatus, but he is coming back soon, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, which means he will be on tonight. He will be on tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. So please be sure to check him out. You will not be disappointed. So be sure to like and subscribe to all of those guys' great shows, and pray for us that we continue to break through. We are up to 629 subscribers, if I remember correctly, which is amazing considering just a couple of months ago we were struggling to reach 500. So thank you all for sharing and signing up and subscribing to our channels. We really, really appreciate it. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled programming. And since we just talked about censorship, I want to get into, well, no, you know what? I want to, that's not that important. I really want to get to this. This is more important than Jimmy Kimmel's non-apology apology. 2 days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, a rag of a publication called Jezebel published an article bragging that they paid witches to put curses on Charlie Kirk. That's not parody. That's the headline. And it's not just satire. It's spiritual warfare. I say it all the time. It's spiritual warfare wrapped in humor and normalized by the American Pravda, normalized by the culture in our media. Let's take a look at that headline. Because this is crazy. Now, you're looking at the web archive because they took it down at the behest of their lawyers, allegedly. But it says, we paid some Etsy witches to curse Charlie Kirk. Now, they took this down right after the assassination attempt, the assassination, and made some changes. But the author of this article is Claire Guinan. And I'm not saying that because I want people to go after her or anything like that. I'm just saying it because we need to know who these people are. We need to know who these people are so that we do not support them in any way whatsoever. And I make that statement because they took it down, and well, they made a change to it before they took it down. And what they did was remove her byline and just put Jezebel, and gave this ridiculous editor's note. The story was published on September 8th. Jezebel condemns the shooting of Charlie Kirk in the strongest possible terms, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe him. I don't believe him for a second. But they paid witches to put curses on him. Unbelievable. This was supposed to be some type of humor. The curses included things like microphone malfunctions and making his thumbs too big for him to tweet or whatever. Ridiculous. And the author says in the article, I'm not going to read the whole thing or scroll through it for you, but you can take a look at it. But the author acknowledged that there were ethical concerns, but said, you know what, I don't care, and went ahead with it anyway. And the fact that they took it down, they made that change, and then they decided to go ahead and take it down. That's not taking responsibility. And I'm not saying that these curses are what caused Charlie Kirk's death. I'm not saying that at all, and I don't want you to get that twisted. But what I am saying is that when you mess around with spiritual forces like that, there are going to be consequences. There are going to be consequences. And Erica and Charlie Kirk knew this. This came to my mind because I saw Megyn Kelly do a video on this, and she said she had known about it for a while, but was struggling whether or not to say anything about it. I wouldn't have known. I don't know anything about Jezebel other than a few stories I've heard here and there, and so I never would have even thought to visit Jezebel for anything. But according to Megyn, Erica Kirk got wind of this and was rattled. And she brought it to Charlie's attention, and they called a friend of theirs who was a priest, and they prayed with him the night before he was killed. For Christians, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. Curses, Ouija boards, all that stuff is not something to be played with. Spiritual warfare, as I say all the time, is real. Just on a personal note, a couple of my favorite shows that I've watched over the years, Charmed, about the three witches, and Supernatural. I haven't watched Charmed. I don't even know if it's still on. I think it probably is. I know it was on in syndication forever. But Supernatural, even before I got saved, there were some things about it towards the end that I just found a little creepy. And so I never finished watching it. And I won't try at this point, because some of those things you just don't want to mess with. You just don't. The spiritual warfare, the spiritual realm is real. And Christians, like I said, Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk, they knew this. And the first thing they did was pray. Now, the American Pravda, they're painting this as satire gone wrong. Newsweek, the AP, some other American Pravda publications. Satire gone wrong. Well, why did it go? How does satire go wrong? Satire is satire. Satire isn't dangerous, is it? Some people may think so, but it's nowhere near as dangerous as messing with witchcraft and demons and all the rest of that stuff. Defenders say it's satire, it's a joke. But would it even cross their minds to hire witches to put curses or hexes on Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or AOC or Joe Biden? Would it? Would they? Of course not. Of course not. They would never dare. And people would object, and rightly so. Even the left-wing people that I just mentioned would object to that. Because deep down, they know that it's real. They know it. Everybody knows it. It's illustrative of the fact, and I call it a fact, that the left has such contempt for conservatives. It runs so deep that even witchcraft and demonic imagery is normalized. Oh boy. This is funny. This isn't funny. B says demons are real, and it is true. We see it every day. But then, oh, my buddy Sean pipes in, and the IRS is proof. And you know what? I can't disagree. I cannot disagree. That's and B cites James 4:7. Absolutely. But yeah, the they normalize this demonic imagery against conservatives, and the media plays cutesy with it, saying that it's just jokes. Just jokes when it comes to harming conservatives and stuff like that, which we know that that's what they really want. We know it. Jezebel invoked witchcraft. That is something that Christians just can't shrug that off. Can't just call that satire, or can't just call that humor, or whatever harmless notion you want to ascribe to it. You can't. And again, I am not in any way, shape, or form blaming Jezebel and these ridiculous curses for Charlie Kirk's assassination. I am not doing that. Anyone who says that I'm doing that, and I tried to be careful to make sure nothing I said could be clipped to suggest that, although they'll try. But this is, like I said, not about blaming Jezebel or Claire Guinan. It's about a culture that treats evil as though it's a game, when we know it's not. They treat evil as a game and then feign innocence when the unthinkable happens, when the unintended consequences happen. Jezebel thought putting a curse on a Christian leader was just content, was just something to do, just something funny. But this wasn't funny. And even if Charlie Kirk hadn't been assassinated, this wouldn't be funny. This wouldn't be funny at all. But I'm not saying that this is causal. There's a causal link between what they did and Charlie Kirk's death, but it is revelatory. It is revelatory because it shows us, again, in no uncertain terms, what we're up against. This is a culture where evil is entertainment, and spiritual darkness and wickedness is dressed up as humor. Do not, under any circumstances, ignore the spiritual war that we're in. Prayer and standing on truth is not optional, especially for Christians. And we want everyone to come to that realization. Charlie Kirk knew it. Erica Kirk knew it. And if you didn't know it then, you should know it now. So keep those prayers going up. If you haven't done it before, now is a perfect time to start. Because, as I always say, the battle that we're in is spiritual. So get your spirit right. All right, there was something I wanted to get to last week that that I didn't, or not last week, but the last time we were together, that I didn't get to. And I want to get to it now because I think it's important, especially in light of in all of the crime that we're seeing run rampant in some of these blue leftist run cities. Where they say that you can't arrest yourself out of crime problems. El Salvador just hit 1,000 days without a homicide. 1,000 days without a homicide. This El Salvador was once known as the murder capital of the world, where they had 104. In 2015, they had 6,556 murders. What? 6,656 murders in 2015 alone. That is insane. But it turns out that the secret to curbing that was not apps, was not midnight basketball. It was soldiers, shackles, and a mega prison. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. You just have to be willing to do what is necessary. That 6,656 murders in 2015 was a homicide rate of 104 per 100,000. Now it dropped in 2018 to 53 per 100,000, which is still insane. Still insane. Gangs ran neighborhoods with curfews. Gangs were implementing curfews in neighborhoods. They forced people to join their gangs. Your biggest decision back then wasn't what to watch on Netflix or what to have for dinner. It was what street to go down to be sure that you wouldn't get hurt or killed or kidnapped or conscripted into service of the gang. Or worse, ending up in a shallow grave somewhere. Now in 2019, when Bukele was elected, he was not having any of it. He was not having any of it. There were mass arrests. He declared a state of emergency and he built the CCOT mega prison. Fast forward to 2025, and it's been 1,000 days since their last homicide. And of course, leftists are saying he's a dictator, he's an authoritarian. The El Salvadorans are saying, yay, they're finally free. They're finally free to walk the streets without fear of being hit with a stray bullet, knifed to death, kidnapped, raped, murdered, whatever the case. And it's been so successful. It's been so successful that even a European nation, and I can't remember if it was the Netherlands or Denmark, I can't remember off the top of my head, they're considering it. They're considering implementing the Bukele model. But in Argentina and other South American countries, they are actively looking at implementing the Bukele model. In Argentina, Patricia Bullrich, the Minister of National Security, toured CCOT. And she said she wants to adapt the Bukele model. Costa Rica, another one. The Justice Minister toured CCOT on orders of President Chavez, and they are planning, they're not just talking about, they're planning a $35 million mega prison in Costa Rica. Ecuador, President Daniel Noboa is building a maximum security prison inspired by the Bukele model. When your country's murder stats look like a Call of Duty scorecard, it's time to do something about it. And that Bukele model, CCOT prison, sounds pretty good. And in Honduras, Xiomara Castro is planning a 20,000 inmate prison modeled after CCOT. I mean, we know it works. We have years worth of data showing that it works. El Salvador is now one of the safest places in the world to visit because arresting people, putting them in prison, arresting criminals, putting them in prison works. Imagine that. Imagine that, Mayor Mohawk. The guy who says that law enforcement and prisons are a sickness. Meanwhile, you can't go 20 minutes without a murder in your city. Whereas in El Salvador, they have gone over 1,000 days. 1,000 days or 20 minutes. Your call. People with common sense look at what's going on in El Salvador and they are praising him for his efforts. Meanwhile, as I said, in Chicago and New York and Memphis, and pick a leftist run city, it's chaos, absolute chaos. And those people who are running those cities and who aspire to run those cities are talking about doing away with law enforcement and doing away with prisons. What sense does that make when you have the proof in El Salvador that actually enforcing laws works? And we've known this. This is not new. This is not anything revolutionary. We've known this. Look at what happened between the time before Mayor Giuliani took over New York and what happened after. He enforced the laws, and New York became one of the safest cities in the world to visit. Lock them up. Lock them up. Actually sentence them. And that solves 90% of your problem. I'm just looking at some of these, some of the chats. I've been caught up and haven't been paying attention, so I apologize. Lock them up indeed. Yes, sir. Lock them up. But Mayor Mohawk doesn't see it that way. Meanwhile, you can't go 20 minutes in his city without somebody getting murdered. The left says that he's a dictator. The left says that he's an authoritarian. Meanwhile, other countries in South America, they're signing up. They look at the Bukele model and say, yes, give me some of that because it works. The human rights groups are clutching their pearls, saying that it's inhumane, while half the countries in South America are on Salvadoran prison tours, touring CCOT, and trying to figure out how they can implement it in their own countries. Bukele went from a global pariah to a security guru. Zero homicides in 1,000 days is amazing, because even in some of the safest cities in the world, that's just unheard of. That's crazy. 1,000 days with no homicides. Now, I didn't dig into it to see what if there were any assaults or any other crimes that had been committed, but even if there had been, it's a safe bet that the perpetrators are being pursued and locked up. Bukele is not playing around. He's not playing around. And the results speak for themselves. The results absolutely speak for themselves. I want to, there's another case I want to, not case, but another thing I want to talk about. And I will try to get to the Kimmel thing if we can. But he's just not that important. So we'll see what happens. But something else that I say often on this show is that the UK has fallen. The UK has absolutely fallen. The Muslims are taking over there. They have no sense of freedom of speech, freedom of expression. They are just turning into a complete authoritarian nightmare. If you pray over there, if you burn a book, you go to jail. If you slash someone with a knife, you get to walk free. This is justice in modern Britain. And this isn't just about one attack. This isn't just one attack. It's about who is setting the tone in the halls of power. And today, in the halls of power, many of those halls are run by Muslims. Yeah, it has fallen. It can't get up. And I am not confident at all that it can return itself to its former glory. I really don't. I think either BZ or Sean, or maybe both, last night on Sean's show said basically the same thing, that the UK is just lost. But the case I want to talk about before I get started, pay no attention to those muzzy grooming gangs that will throw you in prison like Tommy Robinson. Let him be a lesson to you. Well, yeah, exactly. And even though the Muslims over there are not the majority in power, for some reason, they have everyone running scared. They have everyone running scared. I think they make up less than 6% of the of parliament, or maybe that's the population, which would mean it's even less than that in parliament. But regardless, they're still running the show. But the incident I want to talk about is Musa Qadri. He attacked a man by the name of Hamid Koskoun. Hamid Koskoun is a activist who was burning a Quran outside of the Turkish consulate in London. And Musa Qadri took exception to this and shouted, "I'm going to kill you." He started kicking him, and then he slashed him with a knife. He was convicted of assault and possession of a bladed weapon, and sentenced to 20 weeks in prison, suspended for 18 months. What? What kind of sentence is that? That's ridiculous. But that was a sentence handed down. He was also sentenced to 150 hours of unpaid work, community service, and 10 days of rehabilitation, whatever that means. 10 days of rehabilitation is not going to have him denounce Islam. So I don't even know what the point was. It wasn't like he was in some drug-induced haze. He's in a death cult. So what 10 days of rehabilitation, what's that going to do? But anyway, the judge in the case condemned knife crime as a scourge, but handed down one of the most lenient sentences you could possibly imagine for this type of crime. Meanwhile, Koskun has faced penalties for burning that Quran and penalties for his speech. Stiffer penalties for that. It's ridiculous. And this is the speech double standard that is being implemented, or that has been implemented over there in the UK. Speech against Islam, you get punished. Praying in front of an abortion clinic, you get praying on the street in general, silently, you get punished. They will lock you up. But violence in defense of Islam, slap on the wrist. Slap on the wrist. Because that's what that sentence is. That sentence means nothing. That sentence means less than nothing. Sean says, Judge, guys, this is horrible, but we can't do knife crime. Rub suspect shoulders while reading sentence. Well, yeah, that yeah. I mean, it's that ridiculous. It's that ridiculous. I BZ, I see that. I can't put that on the screen. But it is hilarious, and there's probably a kernel of truth to it. Oh boy. Anyway, think about this for a second. Would a Christian who caught someone burning a Bible in front of a church and decided to kick him, spit on him, and slash him for burning the Bible and mocking Jesus, do you think that person would have walked free in the same way this guy did? Of course not. Of course he would not have walked free. He would have been sentenced to those 18 months and then some. Protecting the religious sensibilities of the Muslims matters a whole lot more over there than protecting citizens from the violence inflicted on them by those Muslims, or by anyone for that matter. Let's be honest about it. They don't care about their citizens. And the people, I know that the percentage of Muslims in these positions of power is not that large. But the fact is, they have so many others running scared that people are just bowing to their will. And unless something happens drastic, happens to reverse this trend, the UK is gone forever. The UK will be gone forever. The UK as we once knew it anyway. The king and queen will be ruling over subjects who pay no attention to them. I mean, I don't know where this would go, but it's not going to be anywhere good. Not going to be anywhere good. The people in power over there, the new Home Secretary, who was just appointed in 25, is the first female Muslim to hold that office. Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London. Nusrat Ghani is the mayor of, is the deputy speaker of the House of Commons. Abtisam Muhammad is a member of parliament. Iqbal Muhammad, another member of parliament. Sagib Badi, another member of parliament. They say he's conservative, but what does that even mean? What does that even mean? Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean anything, honestly. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. There are 25 Muslim MPs that were elected in 2024. That's up from 19 in 2019. And there are over 500 Muslim councillors across local governments all over Great Britain. 115 Muslim judges across England and Wales. And it's not just the numbers. It's not just the numbers, but it's the strategic positions that they're now in. This is their plan. This is their plan. I've talked about this before. They are aiming to take over completely. And they don't have to have 100% of all of the positions of power. They just have to have the right ones. And they'll scare the rest into doing what they want. This is what happens when you have people in leadership that are more concerned with protecting religious sensibilities than they are with protecting citizens and employing equal justice. This is what happens. You get pushed out of your own country. And it's to the point now where, like I said, unless something drastic happens, the UK has fallen. And the reason why I bring this up often is because what happens over there is just a preview of what will happen here if we allow it. And a lot of cities around the country are allowing it. So we got to step up. We got to defend free speech, reject this appeasement of these radical Muslims, and learn the lesson that is being taught over there before it becomes part of the curriculum here. And we don't have much time. All right, y'all. Since I have time, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this Jimmy Kimmel nonsense, because it's being framed as a free speech thing, and it's absolutely not a free speech thing. He said some things that were completely insensitive. Yeah, easy. It is happening here. It absolutely is happening here. We're seeing it. We're seeing it. But let me go ahead and move on, because we don't have a whole lot of time left. And I do want to get into, like I said, Jimmy Kimmel and his nonsense. Because the left is trying to frame this as a free speech thing, and it's not. Jimmy Kimmel was suspended for 6 days for his ridiculous comments about Charlie Kirk's murder. And I wasn't going to actually play any of it, but let's go ahead and play a couple of these clips, because I actually had a montage that I was going to put together myself that I didn't get a chance to do, contrasting what he said originally with what he said in his return to the airwaves. It's, you know what? I don't even want to play it. I don't even want to give him the airtime. But what the left is trying to do is frame it, as I said, a free speech thing. They're saying that what the FCC chair said in an interview in response to a question was the same as pressuring ABC and Disney into censoring Jimmy Kimmel. Nothing, just a cursory look at the entire situation, not just what you want to see, but the entire situation will tell you that that's not what happened. That is absolutely not what happened. He was suspended for 6 days for saying something that everyone with more than 2 brain cells to rub together knew was completely out of line. And they approached him, Disney and ABC approached him and said, look, tone it down, write an apology, and it'll be all good. And he refused. So they suspended him for what amounted to a few days in all reality. And then they announced he was coming back, came back to a 6.26 million number, his best number in a decade plus. But this was not accountability. This was a cooling off period of sorts. He said that the MAGA gang was capitalizing on murder because, I guess, conservatives are guilty by association. BZ and I was permanently suspended from Twitter. My dad was too. My dad was too. He had to take down a tweet that he said that he posted about Islam in order for us to get his account back in for the campaign. But yeah, how many of those were streamed and watched outside of the country? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think we'll know that for a while. I'm not sure when the Nielsen ratings get published or anything like that, but that would be interesting to see. That would absolutely be interesting to see. But yeah, that's not accountability. That's just a paid vacation. Because yeah, like Sean said, it was probably a paid vacation. he basically smeared half the country with that monologue that day. And the affiliates, Next Star and Sinclair, they saw that affecting their bottom line, and they wanted an apology. They wanted him gone. And that 6.26 million did not include the 66 Sinclair and Next Star affiliates that preempted his show. And so how many, I'd like to see what his next following few days numbers are going to look like, because I suspect they will go down precipitously each day, and he'll be right back in the toilet where he was. So this was not in any way, shape, or form a constitutional issue, despite what the left says. This was the affiliates. This was ABC and the parent company Disney making a decision to try and protect their bottom line, which is what private companies do. And the fact that Brendan Carr made a passing comment on a podcast had absolutely nothing to do with it. Nothing. So he came back and he issued a ridiculous apology that was not really an apology. So let's take a look at this.
If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear, because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
Please. Of course it was, because that's exactly what you did.
I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deep.
Okay, so what did you mean by the MAGA gang then? It's like, do these people realize that the internet is forever? We have the footage. We know exactly what you said. And whether you can say that's not what you meant all you want, but that is exactly what you said.
Disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make. But I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And
it was perfectly clear. It was absolutely perfectly clear. Sean says he's crying because you got caught isn't the same as crying because you were wrong. I don't even think he was crying. I think he was acting. I don't think those were tears. I don't think there were any tears whatsoever.
for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on.
All right, that's enough. I've had enough of that. That was your typical non-apology apology. He never once said, I apologize. He never once said, I'm sorry. He said, if you were offended, I'm sorry if you felt like come on. Utterly ridiculous. All right, y'all. It has been a quick 90 minutes, and that is all I got for you this time. I will try to keep making each show better than the last. If anything that I said hits home for you, please take a second to like and subscribe and share these episodes. Share it with everyone that you know. I'm not just here to tilt against windmills. I'm not just here to bloviate. I'm here to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope for future generations. If you want some cool gear, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all the great designs that we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.